30 seconds.
Come here, Jim. Come on. Get over here. Come on. Yes,
Okay, folks, we're going to get the meeting started. Please sit in your seat. We're going to start with the prayer and pledge. Thank you, folks.
Good and gracious God, shine your light on the most gifted areas of our lives. Give us understanding of how to utilize our gifts effectively so we may fulfill our calling and our destinies. With joy and satisfaction, allow us to be helpers of humanity, exuding kindness, love, and humility to lift up and improve the lives of others for the betterment of all your people, Lord. We ask you to release in each of us your creative spirit. We ask for open minds and open hearts that we might be clever and inventive in identifying solutions to complex problems in our world. We ask for your wisdom and for the perseverance necessary to develop significant life-changing ideas. Release all the creativity you have placed within us, enabling us to draw others near as we endeavor to live together at this time on this earth and in solidarity. We give thanks for the many blessings we receive from you, and especially for the gift of companionship, that we do not have to make our journeys alone. We offer this prayer in your name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Linda. Welcome, everybody, and happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you. Did anybody have green eggs this morning? Nobody? Well, maybe green beer later on tonight might be more appropriate. Those of you in the back, please keep it down. Linda, the quiet sign, you put those up. Folks, we're very pleased to have you here this evening. It shows that you want to have a say in your government, and you want to be an informed voter at election time. This is a very important meeting this evening. You're going to have, you're going to have Paul Mangle, the other candidate, as well as, well, we're hoping 3 candidates for Lieutenant Governor. We have 2, but I think you're going to find that very interesting. I hope you brought your questions. This is your time. This is your time to get your questions answered and get up front and personal. Now, before we start, I need to do some housekeeping. Folks, I want to let you know that SB 76 is alive and well. Dean Klopp, who is our George Patton of 76, him and his army were out 2 Saturdays ago going door to door getting petitions for Frank Scarwell to get him on the ballot. Now, Frank does support SB 76. His opponent that we're trying to get, obviously, off the Harrisburg is Benedict Blake. Now, Benedict Blake does not support SB 76. Now, folks, they weren't successful. I actually have the computer readout here that we got Frank on the ballot. Folks, Dean and maybe about 5 brave souls were out those 2 Saturdays ago, as I mentioned. They were walking around in 8 to 10 inches of snow to get these signatures. 8 to 10 inches of snow. Just imagine going door to door in order to get the signatures themselves. Thank you, thank you, please. Folks, that should show you the dedication and determination that's being made to eliminate your school property taxes. Now I'm going to tell you, there's only one way to eliminate school property taxes, and that is to pass SB 76. And that's to pass SB 76 as is, no tinkering. Let me repeat that. If you want the school property taxes eliminated, only one way. SB 76 must be passed, no tinkering. I hope the powers that be heard that. Oh, by the way, Dean, where's Dean? Dean? Okay. Folks, Dean's in the back. He's the one that told you about 8 to 10 inches of snow. Let's give a big hand for Dean. Thank you very much, Dean. Okay, my next hat. This has to do with Trump's accomplishments. This is actually part 2 of Trump's first-year accomplishments. Depending on where you look, there's 80 to 100 and some accomplishments. I have a list here of 81. Now, don't worry. I'm not going to read all 81. I think Linda got it down to about 74. We'll see. Now, I'm just going to go through this rather quick. Bear in mind, this is just the first year. Passage of the tax reform bill. There's so much I can say about that, there's no sense going into that. That is huge. That's going to have a major effect on our economy. Creation of 1.7 million jobs. A rebound of economic confidence to a 17-year high. He signed an executive order demanding that 2 regulations be killed for every new one created. He beat that big time. He cut 16 rules and regulations for every one, that new one that went into effect, saving $8.1 billion. He withdrew from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's something we all wanted. Right, Rod? He opened up the American Free Trade Agreement with the U.S. He made enforcement of U.S. trade laws a priority. In other words, America first. He expanded energy infrastructure projects like the Keystone XL pipeline. That's a big one, folks. That's a lot of jobs and makes us more independent. Removed 36% more criminal gang members than fiscal 2016. Added about 100 new immigration judges. Quiet in the back, please. He signed the VA Choice and Quality Employment Act of 2017 to authorize $2.1 billion in additional funds for the Veterans Choice Program. That's a biggie also, folks. He empowered military leaders to seize initiatives and win, reducing the need for a White House sign-off on every mission. This in itself saves lives and gets the job done quicker. So ISIS lose virtually all of its territory. $52 more to go. Good. Made good on a campaign promise to recognize Israel as Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. All the other presidents were scared to do it, even though it's been on the books for years. Now, let me just sum that up. I want to read this to you. In 2016, the Heritage Foundation compiled a 6-volume series of conservative, research-based policy recommendations for the next president. At the end of 2017, the Heritage Foundation reviewed all of 334 recommendations that they presented. The Trump administration had already embraced 64% of them. That's nearly 2 out of 3. That's just the first year. Can you imagine what's going to happen in the second year? That's fantastic, folks. One final thing. Tomorrow, in Harrisburg, the Capitol, there's going to be a Second Amendment rally in March. You can see Donna and Helen, wherever they are, back. Helen, where are you?
Here I am.
Okay. And Donna's around there somewhere.
I'm right here.
Okay, great. Folks, the left takes advantage of every tragedy to infringe on our constitutional rights. Pennsylvania Senator Fontana wants to take away from us, law-abiding citizens, more than 150, let me just make sure I got this right, more than 150 gun models as well as other infringements. Great. Folks, when he got elected to office, he was sworn in. He took an oath to protect and honor the Pennsylvania Constitution. What part of Article 1, Section 21 doesn't he understand? You cannot get anything simpler and more cut and dry than this, and I just want to read this here. The right of the citizens to bear arms in defense of themselves and the state shall not be questioned. How simple can it be? And folks, the last 4 words, shall not be questioned. That's the end of the story. You don't even discuss it. It's done. Now, actually, we're going to help the senator out. We don't want him to violate his oath of office. So we're going to do everything we can to defeat him and defeat the bill. And we need your help to do that. So we hope that some of you can join us tomorrow. If not, there will be a letter writing campaign to the subject as well. We hope you participate in that. Okay, I think that takes care of my house cleaning. And most important, coming up is Carol Gardecki with our Constitution Minute.
Hi, everybody. Last night, my class met again. What a great group of people. We had some great discussions, and they seemed to enjoy it, and I got 2 new members. Actually, one was an old member. She took the class before. She came back for seconds. She liked it so much. The other one was a 20-something-year-old young man, and I heard from his grandmother that he liked it. And so I'm so happy to have a younger person. It's about time. So as promised, I told you that this month I would tell you what the 13 articles were in the Articles of Confederation. They're pretty simple. If you listen carefully, you will see some of them were put into the new Constitution. Okay, number 1 just says that the name of our territory will be called the United States of America. Number 2, that each state maintains its own sovereignty. Number 3, we are a league of friendship. That's a pretty loose organization. Number 4, interstate relations will be reciprocal. That means, for instance, if you were married in one state and you moved to another state, they will recognize your marriage. So the states are going to recognize the things that each other does. That's what that would mean. Number 5 is the structure of Congress. This is really interesting. Each state was allowed to send between 2 and 7 representatives. They couldn't send less than 2, and they couldn't send more than 7. So what happens when they vote? Well, when they vote, every state only got 1 vote. That's how they work that out. Okay, number 6 is the limitations on the states. These are also in the Constitution. The states can't make war by themselves. They can't make treaties by themselves. They can't raise a standing army. Those things are in our Constitution today. They did require that there would be a militia. And the militia is every person, in their case, every male over age 17, and they were required to have some kind of firearm, and they were required to know how to operate it. Number 7, when an army was needed. Now, the states couldn't have a standing army, but if the federal government needed an army, when the army was needed, all the officers from colonel and below are appointed by the state. Everybody above colonel is appointed by the national government. Number 8, the states would pay their fair share of expenses for a war. Number 9, it told what the powers of Congress were. Those are, Congress can make treaties, Congress can make war. These are the things that the state can't do. And Congress would settle disputes between states. Number 10, they had a thing called a Committee of States. The federal government didn't meet for long periods of time like they do now. They had very short sessions. And so this Committee of States was one person from each state, and if something really of an emergency sort came up, they would handle it in the absence of Congress. Now, they couldn't declare war or anything like that, but they could handle smaller matters. Number 11, I think this is one most people don't know. Canada had an open invitation to join the Union. We wanted Canada to be our 14th state. That never happened. It was a big loss to us when we couldn't get Canada. We hoped that we would get them. Imagine what our country would look like if we had gotten Canada. Number 12, all past debts would be honored. That was a big one, because in Europe, when a country borrowed money, they usually borrowed from a bank. If the bank came and said, could I get a payment on your debt? The king would say, oh, that was the other government. We formed a new government. We don't owe you any money. So when our country said that we would honor all past debts, that brought our esteem up in the eyes of the world. They were very impressed with that. And finally, number 13. And number 13, I think, is the real reason that the Continental Congress wrote a new constitution instead of trying to fix this one. They were supposed to go and fix this one. But in this one, they had a process to amend, just as we have in our Constitution. But if you were going to amend the Constitution, you needed unanimous consent. They would have never got unanimous consent. You can't get unanimous consent. And so they realized that trying to fix it was a lost cause. And that, I believe, is the real reason why they wrote a new Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Up next, Ray Boss. Ray will be talking about the letter writing campaign for this month.
Okay, this month's letter writing project is going to ask our state representatives to support HB 1884. It's called the Patient Test Result Information Act. This act, once passed into law, will require testing facilities doing diagnostic, imaging, and radiographic tests to notify not only the ordering physician, but also the patient if the findings are abnormal. I guess they won't send it to you if it's normal. But this prevents the possibility of patients not being notified of abnormal tests until their next scheduled appointment with their primary care or specialist doctor, which sometimes may be 6 months after the abnormal test results are diagnosed. There is no legitimate reason why a patient should not be notified the results of the tests that are abnormal. In the meantime, remember, anytime you are sent for any type of testing, you have the right to ask that the test results be sent to your home address. You may be asked to sign a request form. It is so a routine request, you will not get hassled. Secondly, any veteran here who has not applied for or signed up for your VA benefits, we want you to see Larry in the back there at the table. He has the application forms along with the instructions on how to fill them out. Veterans, remember, you earned these benefits, and they are separate and in addition to any Medicare benefits you may be eligible to receive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate that. Folks, that takes care of our housekeeping. We're now going to go on to the main part of our program. And to get us started with that is going to be a legislative chairman, Rod Miller. Rod, we'll get your juices flowing and take it from here.
Good evening. I'm Rod Miller, and I'm not a candidate.
Yay!
Okay, we do have a lot of candidates tonight, of course. Unfortunately, one called in at the last minute, but turned ill, but we'll still have 2 for lieutenant governor, and of course, the candidate for governor. So we have some key people wanting to spend their time here to encourage you folks to participate, and of course, vote for them, those folks. We also have all of these congressional candidates in the back with the courts and the Democrats. Collectively have the districts for Congress re-gerrymandered. So for the most part, some of the candidates don't even live in the district they're running. No fault of theirs, is because they keep moving the boundaries. So it is what it is. But in any event, those that are here and looking for signatures on their petitions, please honor them with your signature if you want to support any or all of them. Okay. Last month, I spoke in some length after the candidate for governor was through on our hot buttons. I'm not going to go through them all again, but I assure you things have not changed, and they're still there. Tonight, when you listen to the candidates, I want you to pay close attention to what they have to say. And if there's issues that are on your mind, or issues that we spoke of in the past and didn't make the table, so to speak, don't hesitate. We're going to have Q&A after the candidates for lieutenant governor. We'll also have Q&A for the candidate running for governor. I'll remind you of the hot buttons and some of the issues that if you don't hear these things come up tonight, don't hesitate to join in and participate with the Q&A. Those things I mentioned in the past, the political pensions. It's over $60 billion now and climbing, money that's going to come into our wallet to get into their wallet. The public employee pension system, likewise, that's where the major debt is, but the public employees didn't bring it on, the legislature did. They passed the bills, they increased the pensions, particularly their own, and they didn't fund it. Operating cost of government. I spoke of that before. Pennsylvania is the most expensive government, operating government in the nation. Most expensive. We have the most expensive full-time legislature in the nation. It has to be addressed. Corruption. I mentioned it before. We are the tops in the nation for corruption by other people's standards. And then again, I listed all of the people we have already sent to prison. Some didn't get there, but they're thrown out of office. Right to work. We don't have a right to work bill. We don't have a right to work law. 28 states do. And if our president succeeds in bringing offshore work back to the United States, they're not going to come to Pennsylvania. With our cost of operating our government and no right to work law, they're going to go to the 28 states that have right to work. Our economics are not going to improve. Property tax, you heard Sam mention it, another major issue. Cost of education. We are very expensive in educating our youth, and it's questionable if we're educating them to where we need to be today. Healthcare, Medicaid, and Medicare, another issue. The opioid crisis, plenty of things going around on that. Apparently, we happen to be in the ground zero of the opioid crisis right around Berks County. Sanctity of life. There's 5 states have bills now moving the 24-week period back up to 20 weeks. Politicians decided apparently that fetus do not feel pain up to 24 weeks. So they decided 24 was a good number. Some states moving it back to 20 or trying to. I guess that's a safety net, so politicians or a doctor misses the number that it happens to be the patient's 26th week. Is that the doctor's fault? Is that the politician's fault or the patient's fault? Second Amendment. Heard it again. We're having a rally Saturday in the Second Amendment. Sanctuary cities. I guess Philadelphia and Pittsburgh declared themselves sanctuary cities. Is that or is not a violation of federal law? And what did the governor do about it? And finally, the economy. I mentioned that before, that Pennsylvania, the last time I checked a little over a year ago, we were 50th in the nation attracting business, and I think 49th in retaining business. The other way around, but we have a real economic problem. Fact is, I was just handed this tonight out of the Harrisburg paper, and it ranks us in the economy, have us at 34th, and fiscal stability 42nd. I think it's lower than that, but that in itself shows you we're way below national average in quality of life of where we ought to be economically. So, okay, I have to crush, so to speak, of the issues. What we're going to hear tonight, I don't know, but we're going to get them up here and let them tell you what they would like you to hear. So, with that in mind, Gale, would Joe please come forward? And likewise, Peg Luksik, would she also come forward? Come on up, Joe. Fancy and figure out who goes first. I think I'll save it. Looks like I should have flipped the coin, I can tell. Anyway, what we're going to do, folks, I've allocated about 8 minutes for them to tell us what each would like you to hear. And after those, we're going to go to Q&A. With the third candidate not appearing, hopefully we'll have more Q&A time. So we have a timekeeper. So I'll ask each of you to try to limit to 8 minutes, or if you go less than 8 times, more time for Q&A. So thank you,
Good evening. Thank you all for coming tonight. I've actually spoken to this group before, so I really appreciate you letting me come back. For those of you who don't know me, I live in Johnstown. My husband and I have been married for about 39 years. We have 6 children. They are all girls. except for 5 of them. It's an IQ joke, how to do. My professional career, I actually was an advisor to President Reagan's administration. He had a commission on the family. I worked specifically with adoption and welfare reform. I am a founding board member of the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference, a founding board member of the Pennsylvania Family Institute, and I was the strategist behind the passage of the homeschool law here in Pennsylvania. So if you homeschool your children, you're welcome, because I'm one of the reasons the law is passed. I am originally a teacher. I taught everything from preschool through college. I actually created a charity for single mothers. We sent them back to school that was named the National Point of Light by President George Bush, and was one of the programs looked at in the Welfare Reform Act of 1994. I've taught everything from preschool through college in both special ed and elementary ed. Worked for the U.S. Department of Education for some years. My job was to review and evaluate education reform initiatives. In the 1990s was one of the leading national opponents of outcome-based education, literally debated it in every state but Hawaii and beat them, and have spent the past 5 years fighting Common Core across the country. Ago, I was addressing a group of high school students, and they asked me, Dr. Luksik, is there such a thing as an American culture? And they were serious. And I thought that was really sad, because they honestly didn't know. In fact, there is. This is a nation that is founded on the belief that each of you is a created being. And because you are created, you have rights. Not because of a group you belong to or a label that you may have, and you don't have to fight somebody else to compete for them. Because you're created, you have endowed rights. The first of those is your right to exist, the right to life. Because if the government can tell you that you don't have the right to your own existence, you don't have any rights. And so, from the moment of conception on, we must stand in defense of the right to life.
Amen.
Now, I will tell you, I have done that for years. I actually have spoken at the National Right to Life, as well as attending that March for Life. I've attended over 14 of them, and then have spoken at them. So it's something that I feel very passionate about and have devoted a lot of time to. That also applies to health care. Single-payer, government-run health care lets the government determine who gets what health care under what conditions, which controls your right to exist. You should be in charge of your health care, not some bureaucrat in Washington. And that's something you need to stand against. The second of your rights is your right to liberty. Your right to defend your life and your property is inherent. That's why you have to have the right to bear arms. It doesn't matter whether who's attacking you is a government run amok or an intruder. You have to have the right to defend yourself. You know, sadly, tragically, in the news, there was this weekend, just in the past couple of days, it was a stabbing. A young man stabbed 3 people. He killed one, and then he was stabbing a woman, and the son tried to protect his mom, and got stabbed trying to protect his mom. And it's a terrible, terrible tragedy. And in response, I think we should ban all scary-looking knives. Right. Because isn't that the same thing? It's just as tragic if you're killed by a knife as by a gun. The weapon doesn't matter. The crime does. That young man was also under investigation by the FBI, and they did nothing. The problem isn't law-abiding citizens. The problem is law enforcement that's not doing its job. I mean, the right to liberty is also the right to live under the law. We are a republic. We're not a state. We're a republic. And in a republic, everyone is equal in the eyes of the law. Whether that person is a failed presidential candidate or an immigrant sneaking across the border, if you break the law, you break the law. Now, interestingly, we talk about the opioid crisis. Closing the borders would cut off the flow of drugs, which would help with the opioid crisis. So the fact that we're not taking care of our borders has lots of repercussions, all of them negative. And we need to say one law, everyone held accountable to the same bar. The operative word in illegal immigrants is illegal. Your third, pursuit of happiness. That begins with your right to maintain property. Now, we've talked about property tax. You know, I have this history of putting my money where my mouth is, so for the past 4 months, I've actually been doing commercials with the Pennsylvania Liberty Alliance that have aired all across Pennsylvania in support of Senate Bill 76, because we do need to stop that antiquated system. Get kids to education. Our schools are not workforce development centers where little pieces of human capital are trained to do a job some government official selected for them. Our schools are academic institutions where our children deserve the proper academics so that they can create their own destiny. Common Core has got to go. And I am at the same time, we have to have the right to interact with our Creator.
Yes.
Isn't it a shame that in our schools today, our children are allowed and sometimes even encouraged to kneel in disrespect for our flag and forbidden to kneel in respect for the Creator who endowed them with their rights? Something here is upside down, and we need to do something to fix that. At the same time, you have the right to follow your conscience. Do you know that's enshrined in the Pennsylvania Constitution? That no human authority, it says, can force you to violate the dictates of your conscience. That's why we allow conscientious objectors. You know, people should be allowed to conscientiously object to baking a cake, too. Interestingly, government doesn't have any rights. Government just has responsibilities. Those responsibilities begin with real transparency. Every government asset of every level should be on the table. The same school districts that are raising property taxes have millions of dollars in assets sitting there for their national taxes. You know, the government doesn't actually have any money. It's all yours and mine. So we should know how much of our money they're holding. So every asset on the table. No such thing as a hidden tax. They make every time, 1 minute, they make every food producer put on how much, you know, what the calories are. But when you buy gasoline, you should know how much that gas tax is. It's 77 cents, in case you didn't know. At the same time, everything should be on budget. Every item, and if it's allocated for a particular purpose, it should be spent for that purpose. Now, I'm running for lieutenant governor by myself. I don't have a gubernatorial sponsor who's paying for my campaign. Because I believe that while the lieutenant governor works with the governor, the lieutenant governor doesn't work for the governor. Like every elected official, the lieutenant governor works for you and should be accountable to you. And my opinion is based on that. Now, my information is in the back. Actually, it's at the table with the Senate Bill 76 folks. There's a daily number, there's a website, there's a Twitter account, so that you can talk to me every single day. And I would humbly ask if you do that, and then you remember me on May 15th. Thank you so much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Many of you met me back in August. I came here and I was the speaker. And then the fake news bias media did reports all over the newspapers in Southeast Pennsylvania that Joe Gale spoke to a hate group. Southern Poverty Law Center told all of you a hate group. And I don't know, an organization that starts off with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance is not a hate group in my book. And it's so great to tell you all again and be with like-minded conservatives. I'm running for Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania to give people like you a choice. That's what I did for Montgomery County Commissioner. I currently serve as Montgomery County Commissioner, the third largest county in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, with over 825,000 residents. It's next to the city of Philadelphia and Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is. We're number 3 in population. I was elected in 2015 in what was considered the biggest upset in Pennsylvania that year. I beat the Republican Party establishment. I didn't have to back the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. And I ran because the Montgomery County Republican Committee endorsed a board member of Planned Parenthood, the Republican Party. And I thought that was outrageous, and I wanted to give conservatives a clear conservative choice. So I had the courage to run against the establishment and give people a choice. And everybody said, Joe, you're too young, you're never going to win. Joe, you need $1 million, you're never going to win. Joe, the pro-lifers that wave signs on the street corners are not going to help you win. And guess what? I now have the honor of serving as Montgomery County Commissioner. We proved them all wrong because people like you, people like me, are fed up with the Republican Party and the wishy-washy, gutless, rhino Republicans that vote like liberal Democrats. I had enough. conservative that walks the walk, and I keep thumbing the eye of the establishment. I don't give a damn about the Republican Party. It's pissing the brains. I run against the establishment. That's why Donald Trump was elected president. I was the first elected official in Pennsylvania to formally endorse Donald Trump because he has backbone. And you deserve a fighter in Washington, you deserve a fighter in county government, you deserve a fighter in Harrisburg. And I would like to be that fighter for you in the lieutenant governor position. I will go there and quote unquote drain the swamp. I will continue to thumb them in the eye. I will hold not only the liberal Democrats accountable, but also the rhino Republicans. And we saw an example of that with the last Republican majority in Harrisburg under Governor Tom Corbett. He was a Republican governor, had a Republican majority in the state House and the state Senate, and the legacy of that administration was giving Pennsylvania the highest gas tax in the whole entire nation. Over 50 cents per gallon is taxed at the pump, and that was the Republicans that gave us that tax. They failed to do property tax reform. They couldn't do Senate Bill 76 for over 12 years. They were talking about that. They couldn't do prevailing wage reform. They couldn't do paycheck protection. They couldn't privatize liquor stores. They failed to uphold traditional marriage between a man and a woman. They couldn't uphold the voter ID law. They left us with a whopping tax. And that's something I'm critical of the Republicans for doing. And as Montgomery County Commissioner, I'm one of the sole county commissioners throughout the Commonwealth to oppose the increase in the vehicle registration fee, which was a provision of the Corbett Gas Tax Act 89. And like I said, I walk the walk. And I will hold rhino Republicans and the liberal Democrats accountable in the lieutenant governor position. And I'll hold the Republican governor accountable. Also, it's its own separate primary, and that's the way it should be. I'm tired of the political establishment ramming candidates down our throats. I'm tired of gubernatorial candidates handpicking hypothetical running mates. There's 3.2 million registered Republicans in this Commonwealth. You all deserve to pick who the nominee is, not the establishment and not governor candidates. I had enough of politics as usual. I'm going to end politics as usual, and I bring a new level of energy to change the culture of Harrisburg. A lot of people criticize me. They don't know what the hell to say about me, because thank God I have no criminal record. I'm a solid conservative. I vote to oppose property tax increases. I expose backroom deals and corruption in the county courthouse. I have no baggage. They bring up my age. There's an age requirement for lieutenant governor. And if you read the Pennsylvania Constitution, it says one must be 30 years of age to assume the role of lieutenant governor. I interpret the words assume the role of to mean to take the oath of office and become lieutenant governor. Not to be a candidate for lieutenant governor or to be elected lieutenant governor, to assume the role of. So I would turn 30 years old 2 months after the swearing-in date. I'd have to wait 2 months to take office. And the pro tempore of the Pennsylvania State Senate would act as lieutenant governor during that 2-month period. There's already a process in place to fill the void. And I can tell you this after traveling the state, the general public does not give a damn about 2 months, because for decades we've had an endless cycle of corruption, of scandal, and total dysfunction. There's people much more mature than me. Obviously this lady's more mature than me. She has an issue with my age. She did an interview on PCN recently. It was so boring, a half-hour interview, I could barely watch it. And at the end they asked her about her primary opponents. She takes one jab at one primary opponent, me, and she makes an issue of my age, and says I give convoluting answers regarding my age issue. I have been on the same message from the day I announced about my age. This lady has run for governor 1990, lost. 1994, lost. 1998, lost. Ran for the United States Senate in 2010, lost. So please give me a break. This woman doesn't have a chance. She brings no energy to this ticket. It's time for her to pass the torch. And you deserve conservatives that have backbone and a proven ability to win, a proven ability to fight for you, and a key area of the state. Because guess what? Beating Tom Wolf is a big task. And I have to be on that ticket where I have a big base of following of conservatives where 40% of the electorate is. Southeastern Pennsylvania, that 5-county region, is 40% of the statewide electorate. That's where my support is, and I have the proven ability to energize them and get them out to vote. So I have to be on that ticket in the general election in order to win. And age is not an issue. I mentioned dysfunction. They can't even pass a damn budget in Harrisburg. 3 years in a row, there's a budget stalemate. We send them there to pass a budget. They can't do it. And age does not equal common sense and moral character, and they're the values that my parents taught us growing up. And that's what you deserve from elected officials. I'm getting tired of every time you open the newspaper of elected officials going to prison. And we see a lot in Harrisburg. Look at the former state treasurer, Rob McCord, pled guilty of extortion. He's gone. Our former Attorney General, Kathleen Kane, was arrested. Supposed to be the chief prosecutor of law enforcement. She's gone. There were state Supreme Court justices that sent pornography on government-issued emails. They're gone. The former district attorney in Philadelphia, Seth Williams, is in prison. Former congressman in Philadelphia is in prison. I have 1 minute to go. My point is, those people did not have common sense and they did not have moral character. And it's an endless cycle of dysfunction, corruption, and scandal, and you deserve better. The endorsed candidate for this position, Lieutenant Governor, is the definition of a rhino. He donates to Democrats, has a record of 20 years donating to Democrats. He donated the board member of Planned Parenthood, who I beat my primary. He actively worked against me. The guy's an entrenched political insider who has a long time history of colluding with Democrats. That's the last type of person we need, and this guy is bad news. And I'm proud of the fact that I'm unendorsed. I'm proud of the fact that I'm not teamed up with a gubernatorial candidate. I want to be your candidate for Lieutenant Governor. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Okay, folks, we're not going to give you folks a turn. And as I said last month, if you have a question, get on the ball. You want to get fired? Anyway, you can frame your question and ask your question, but you don't need war speeches. That was their job. And I would appreciate if we don't filibuster the questions to get as many as we can. You ask a question to either one, but both can answer it. If the question is directed to one, the other person will have a chance to respond as well. So with that in mind, where's the questions? Here we go.
Hi folks, my name is Dean Klopp, co-founder of Pennsylvania Liberty Alliance and Berks County Patriot. Joe, you said a lot tonight. I just wonder if respect is in your family values, because I can't believe the way you just treated a lady that's accomplished more in her lifetime than you probably ever will. And I'm ashamed of you. But that's not my question. My question is regarding my two sons. They have to be 17 and 20 years of age. And my youngest son, he's looking at colleges right now for him. He's looking at sociology, maybe going into politics, I'm not sure. But he's very upset that he will not have a chance to vote in the primary. He doesn't turn 18 until 2 months after the primary election. He cannot register to vote. And I said, you know what, Devin, I'm going to see a man tonight that thinks that we should disregard ages and laws and our Constitution, and I'm going to ask him for input on that. The other thing is my 20-year-old son who's attending Waynesburg University, and he hangs around with college-age kids, so he'll get in trouble. Underage drinking. There was just a fellow that was busted for underage drinking in Waynesburg University. He pled with the cop that he would not turn 20, that he would turn 21 in another couple months. Guess what? He just got cited. So, Joe, and I'd like to hear your background as well, how you feel about that. Okay.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a prime example of exactly what I'm talking about. This guy is part of this campaign, part of the Luksik campaign. It's no shock that he would get up and say that. I heard it, and exactly my point. There's one issue they bring up about me, my age. Guess what? The general public doesn't care about 2 months. So I'm sorry, it's not going to work. Other than that, you have a question. That's my answer. So you're part of this campaign, and I think you should have identified that before you got up and asked a stupid question.
I think it's funny, I don't have any paid staffers in the campaign, so private citizens who are honoring me with their support, I appreciate that support. Nobody's paid in this campaign, so that was a little misleading. The other thing, you heard a lot of, I don't do personal attacks, so let me just perhaps set the record straight just a little bit. In 1990, some of you were probably part of that campaign. That was a campaign for governor. I see some hands raised. that we raised and spent $45,000 in a 6-week campaign to protect the Republicans who had voted for the Abortion Control Act, because the National Organization of Women and the National Abortion Rights Action League had both sent their national presidents to Pennsylvania to say that was the target. Remember, Bob Casey was the sitting governor, he's very popular. And so nobody would run against him. The Republicans put up Barbara Hafer, who was an ardent, radical feminist. Nobody would run against her. I was 34. And I did. I spent $45,000. I got 46% of the vote. I saved every pro-life seat in the Republican legislature. I endorsed 2 pro-life Republicans over their pro-choice challengers. Both of my guys won. So we increased the pro-life majority in the Pennsylvania House by 2. And the next day, the Washington Post, above the fold editorial, said, the housewife from Johnstown, which is what they called me, melted the pro-choice silver bullet. I don't think that was a failure. I think that was a success. In '94, what Joe neglected to tell you was, I ran as an independent. I bucked both parties because they were both pro-abort candidates. I ran as an independent and got nearly 500,000 votes, which is a modern American record for independent candidates. It's more than people get nationally. So again, a little bit misleading, Joe. Not a failure. Accomplished all of our objectives, set records, and was very successful. I'm not 28. I've been around for a while. And in that been around for a while, I've gotten legislation passed and beaten legislation. I'm able to work with every level of government and have, in fact, made a great difference in this Commonwealth and across the country.
This isn't going to work. We had our floor filibuster, and we had a filibuster here. I'm going to say one more time, please, frame your question, ask your question. Please, answer the question. If there's a debate, we'll have to do it some other time. Next question, please.
Hi, I'm Jeff, please. I have 2 things that I think Pennsylvania needs to do to start to straighten things out. One is we need term limits for the Senate and the legislature. Secondly, we need to make the Senate and the legislature part-time without pension benefits and without lifetime benefits.
I'm for it.
I'm also in favor of term limits. Like I said earlier, we need new blood in all levels of government. And we have a lot of the same old in Harrisburg that let us down time and time again. I'm fed up, and obviously I'm passionate about it. And I think it's time to get the old guard out and get new blood. Let's not be old. And we're not political puppets on a string for the establishment.
Next question.
Scott Wagner is a supporter of the harmful sex change surgery for our children. Our tax money is paying for that presently under the CHIP program. I'm wondering how the 2 of you feel about that. Would you want to stop funding that?
Yes.
Yes, I would, and I'm very disappointed in Senator Scott Wagner for co-sponsoring a transgender bathroom bill. He can call whatever he wants. It's a transgender bathroom bill. I'm running radio ads across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania right now, hitting him on that, because again, he hit me on my age. He's having his crony, somebody that lives on his street, taking me to court tomorrow in Commonwealth Court to challenge my age eligibility. So guess what? If you're not a conservative, I'm going to hold him accountable. And that's an example. If he's in the governor, I'm the lieutenant governor, and he starts advocating for transgender bathrooms, I'll be very vocally opposed to it and against it.
Other questions somewhere?
My name's Tom Moses. I'm new to Berks County. I love it up here. I'm my wife Cindy. We have a biggest crisis. I mean, it's not transgender management. It is the pension, the state pension. And I want to know, since it's really just an act of the legislature that created it, why can't we just repeal it, grandfather in what we got to do, repeal the thing and rewrite it as a 401?
There is a bill currently, I think Senator Eichelberger is one of the sponsors of it, that says anybody new coming in would be a 401. The problem with back doing it is people have already paid money in. I will tell you that with the current pension, there was a report by the Auditor General, the money that's invested in the pension earns 1.29%. Illinois earns more than 12, and California earns 14%. So it isn't just that they passed a law and gave themselves raises. They are not managing the money well either. So the first thing we need to do is change how we invest the pension money to turn the investment into that 14, the national average is 12.5%. That would turn our rate from $600 million to over $4 billion a year, and that would certainly help. So, and then Senator Eichelberger's bill says for all the people coming in, they should be able to manage their own money so they're not at the mercy of the state, and I'm in support of that. We need to do something proactively to fix that.
I mentioned in my remarks the failure of the Corbyn administration, the Republican majority, to pass pension reform. We should be on a defined contribution plan, not a defined benefit plan, for all new hires in state government. But why is it not done? Because it's a political class who loves all the benefits that they receive and the Cadillac plans of everything, and they don't want to change it. It's the same reason why they don't change term limits, because the people in office don't want to change it. It's a problem with a political class, and we have to change it. So absolutely, there should be pension reform done, and the Republicans should have done so when they had the majority.
I have two questions.
I want to take a moderator's privilege here. I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Article 2, Section 8, Pennsylvania Constitution. Legislators are entitled to salary and mileage and no other compensation whatever. For those that are in a defined benefit program, as of now, they can certainly grandfather them in and we can move on. Private industry did it. Government can do it. The problem with government is it's not their money, it's our money, and it's a little bit more difficult for them to understand that. Next question.
I have for Joe. My name is Debbie Keener, and I'm a big person for SB 76. I want to know what you're going to do. Are you going to get out there and canvass with us? Are you going to get this bill passed with us? Because this is the most important thing across Pennsylvania. That's question number one. Question number two, I'm a veteran that was denied my right to live last summer. I called Casey, Toomey, Pitt, Costello's office, and I was almost starved to death until my warriors fought for me. So if you put Dean Clark down, you're putting one of my warriors down. And I hold that near and dear to my heart.
Sure. Well, with all due respect, Miss, Dean Clark has not accomplished SB 76. So that's a reality, okay? And I'm tired for how many years that they've been talking about it and they don't do it. I support the elimination of school property tax. I support Senate Bill 76. I'm disappointed that the incumbent Lieutenant Governor Mike Stack cast a tie-breaking vote against it a few years ago. It's been all talk, no action, and I just started off this evening by telling you the Republicans had the prime opportunity to do it under the Corbyn administration and failed to do so. I have the proven ability to win. I'm somebody who will champion that bill and work tirelessly to get it through the Senate. And if wishy-washy rhino Republicans don't support it, I'll hold them accountable at the public Senate. I will criticize the Republicans for not supporting it, put pressure on it.
Hi, my name is Marianne. I'm from Montgomery County. And my question is, what are you going to do about all the drugs that are going on in our state? President Trump is on record saying that we need to get tough with drug dealers, and he mentioned that we either have to be killed or they have to be between life and prison. So I'm looking at one.
It's a couple-part answer because it's a couple-part issue. I mentioned in my opening remarks closing the borders to stop the influx of drugs, which is where we have to start. You know, there was a program in York County, I believe, where people could turn in all of their unused drugs, and they collected thousands and thousands of pills, and I thought, but why were there thousands and thousands of pills? And then I found out that in the universities where doctors are taught, the chairs are endowed by the drug companies, And it's the pharmaceutical companies that are actually doing the continuing education for doctors. And so what they're told is prescribe, prescribe, prescribe. So we need to separate, and there is actually some movement on this, to separate the medical community from the pharmaceutical industry, because their stated purpose is to sell pharmacy drugs. And so doctors are over-prescribing. So the second step is to do what we need to do to pull the doctors away from the pharmacies, so that the go-to position is to prescribe a bunch of drugs. The third thing is the drug dealers that you talked about, and the penalties for that. There's a difference between the kid who gets picked up with the little bag of marijuana and the drug dealer up the street from me. The other night they had a meth lab that they found. Those people need the book thrown at them, and I'm really in favor of harsh penalties for drug dealers. They are destroying lives that can't get put back. So it's kind of a three-pronged effort. Close the borders, separate the medical community and the pharmaceutical industry so that the doctors don't just become a prescribing factory, which is what we see, and then deal more harshly with drug dealers.
I agree, there's a lot of components to the drug issue that's facing the nation today. Montgomery County, which I represent, is the second wealthiest county in the Commonwealth, and the opioid crisis is impacting Montgomery County big time. It doesn't matter your gender, your socioeconomic class, your age. A lot of people are suffering from the opioid addiction. It's a big epidemic facing the Commonwealth and the whole nation. Thank God she's right. President Trump is in office, and he's going to secure the border where drugs are pouring over the southern border. 2, we have to be strict, like you said, on the drug dealers, harsh punishment. And she's also correct with the prescription drugs. Physicians should not be issuing 30 days, for example, of painkillers for a toothache. It should be maybe 3 or 4 days, because people become dependent on the opioid and in return develop an addiction to those prescription drugs. So the state legislature should change the laws related to prescription drugs. And like I said, it starts with illegal drugs coming across the border, but prescription drug use problem we have now is a big problem. And it's never too early to start teaching our youth the dangers of drug addiction, the fact that it can happen to anyone, a star athlete, a movie star, anyone can be impacted by the drug addiction crisis that's facing America. And we should teach our youth the dangers.
Okay, folks, that uses up our time slot for our 2 candidates for Lieutenant Governor. And I want to thank Ms. Luksik for being here, all of those Gale, and folks for being I'll just make one final comment, just to remind you that Lieutenant Governors may not be the key to this SB 76, but if you remember, the Senate voted on SB 76. It was a tie vote. And the reason it didn't go any further is because the Lieutenant Governor breaks the tie. You heard Berks say they support SB 76. We need somebody in the Lieutenant Governor's slot that will do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. Commissioner Leibach, you mind coming up? Folks, Commissioner Leibach is going to be introducing our governor candidate, Paul Mango. But before he does, I want to let you know, he is the sponsor of this meeting. He bought our Gold General Membership sponsorship. He paid $300 for it. So we want to thank the Commissioner for being the sponsor of the meeting. And we also want to thank the Commissioner for his support for the Berks County Patriots. We always honored him, and I hope that will continue. So I'm going to turn the mic over to the Commissioner now, and he can do his thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. The year's 1909, and a 14-year-old boy comes into the port of Philadelphia. Almost no money, and he's here looking for the American dream. That 14-year-old boy was Paul Mango's grandfather. He went on to work on the railroad, and I guarantee he could have never imagined that over 100 years later, his grandson would be running for governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Paul Mango is a man that up to a little over a year ago, I'd never heard of and never met. But a friend of mine reached out to me and said, Christian, would you please meet with this man? He's thinking about running for governor. This man told me this. I graduated from West Point with Paul Mango. I said, John, I don't know Paul, but I know you. I'll meet with him. And when I met with him, I realized I was talking to a man that spoke from the heart and was honest. He didn't have all the answers. He asked me about a lot of questions, and one of them was property tax elimination, school property tax elimination. I came to realize this is a man that down deep inside is a man first of faith. He and his wife are Catholics. They've raised 5 wonderful girls. I said raised. They have a 14-year-old still at home. One of those girls, Hope, is also a graduate of West Point. Paul and his wife Dawn both met at West Point. His wife was one of the first women to graduate from West Point. He went on to serve in the 82nd Airborne. He went from the 82nd Airborne and worked his way through Harvard, and then started a healthcare consulting business at McKinsey & Company, which he sold a little over a year ago. That's a great story. It is a great story because I understand it and many of you do. Many of you can talk about parents or grandparents or great-grandparents that came from another place and came here for a dream, but that is not enough in order to be governed. They have the right lineage or they have the right party label. It is about issues. When I sat down and I talked to Paul about issues, I realized when it came to family values, he was unafraid. He was pro-life without question. He understood what was happening in the Boyertown School District and stood with us. He's a man that isn't afraid to get in front of a group. Scott Wagner refused to participate in the Pennsylvania Family Institute Governor's Forum. Not Paul. Paul was ready to go. I support Paul not just because he's a good man, not just because he has a good story, but when it comes to issues of family values, when it comes to the commitment to support Senate Bill 76 and House Bill 76, when it comes to supporting the right of those of us that believe the Second Amendment still means something, he's there. He's a man that understands you can't fix Pennsylvania by simply cutting spending, and you definitely can't simply fix it by raising taxes. I'll take a quote from him. If you have a broken economy that has been broken for decades, that loses a congressional seat every 10 years for the last 40 or 50 years, and you try to cut your way to prosperity, all you have is a smaller, broken government. We need to turn Pennsylvania around, ladies and gentlemen. The next governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, my friend, Paul Mango.
I'm going to stand down here if that's okay. Can everyone see me in the back? I hate those podiums. I hate the stages. I'd rather be with you tonight. And boy, you have a great commissioner. Let me just talk about Christian Leinbach for a minute, because I've learned a lot in the last 15 months, and the one thing I've learned more about is courage. I was nobody. In fact, my opponent said I came from nowhere. He said that several times. He said I dropped out of the sky, interestingly. Given that I was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division, I'll take that. But Christian Leinbach, virtually on day one, said, I want to support you. And in politics, that requires a lot of courage. That requires a lot of courage. I haven't seen that all over the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. You have a great county commissioner. Hopefully you understand that as I do. Thank you, Chris. Okay, I have a singular objective tonight. I have about 15 minutes, I think, right, Bob? 15 minutes or so? Okay, here 20 minutes. When I leave here tonight, my singular objective is that you know me better than you know me now. That's my objective. I know you'll have a couple of questions. I'll be eager to try to answer those questions. As Christian said, I don't have all the answers. I'm still seeking answers, but I'll answer them as best I can. So I thought I'd do 4 things. Elaborate a little bit on my biography. Christian gave you a good start, but I want you to know me a little bit better than that. I want to talk about ideology. I know that's a fancy word. I want to talk about how I differ so fundamentally from Tom Wolfe and the liberal progressive socialists who are in office today. I want to talk and make sure you understand where am I coming from. I want to talk about the role, as Christian suggested, of values and faith in our country. The importance, the essence of values and faith in our country. And lastly, I want to talk about leadership. Because as I've said several times, and this is a true statement, there are over 1,000 years of political experience in Harrisburg. There aren't 2 days of executive leadership there. That's what Pennsylvania lacks. So I want to talk about those 4 topics, and I'll come back up to the top, which is a little bit more about me. My granddad did indeed come from Italy in 1909. He was by himself, 14 years old, as Christian suggested. He had the good sense to bypass Ellis Island and land in Philadelphia. How lucky am I, right, as his grandson? And he did work on the railroad. And his job was very simply shovel coal cinders from steam locomotives. But he was the happiest guy in the world because he knew in the whole history of the Mango family, over hundreds of years, he made the leap that has made the biggest difference in the whole family lineage. And that was leaving Italy and coming to this great country. He knew that 100 years ago. I'm the son of Italian-Irish Catholic parents. 5 of us growing up. Ladies, my mother had 4 of us in less than 4 years with no twins. Think about that for a second. 4 children, less than 4 years, no twins. I was the 4th one. You know what that meant? After I had my 5 daughters, what I learned was I was unsupervised as a child. That's why I don't like government burdens, right? I was unsupervised as a child. But it was a great upbringing. My parents had very, very little from a material sense. But they gave us 4 things that led to our success. Strong family values, very strong family values. We were home at 4 o'clock every Sunday afternoon, no matter what we were doing. That was family time for dinner. Everyone had to be there, had to be showered, dressed, ready for dinner at 4 o'clock every Sunday. A faith in God. A faith in God. I tell the story of my mother. I was an altar boy when I was young, and every summer, to get me out of bed in the morning, she'd sign us up for the 6 a.m. Mass. There were 3 people there. The priest, my mom, and me. That was it. But I did get out of bed early, I'm telling you. But that was very important. Third, a sense of commitment and service to this country. My dad was a National Guardsman the whole time I was growing up, and they taught us the importance of serving this country, which I think is, you know, we have an all-volunteer army, which is just a spectacular fighting force. But you know, when we had the draft, I think we shared some values together that we don't anymore. And then lastly, it was this, what I call unfailing belief. Although we had nothing, unfailing belief that we could be anything we wanted in America as long as we tried hard enough. And as a 3 and 4-year-old, you hear that enough times and you begin to believe it. So I set off on this very improbable journey. Very improbable journey. The grandson of an Italian immigrant, the son of 2 parents, neither of whom has a college education, and I went off to West Point, as Christian said. I did meet my wife there. I call it the only bonus the government has ever given me. It's my wife. And I tell people, this is a true story, I have one of my classmates back here, there were 4,000 male cadets there, and fewer than 400 female cadets. You know how hard I had to try to win the heart of my wife? Are you kidding me? Persistence. I had to be determined. I had to be convincing. Because the other 3,999 guys weren't slouches. But it was wonderful. We've been married almost 36 years. She is absolutely my hero. Not only did she bear the brunt of rearing our 5 daughters, she's had a wonderful career along the way. She's a very successful business executive in her own right. We went off to the service, 82nd Airborne Division, wonderful time. Went over to Germany before the Berlin Wall fell. And as Christian said, we were both lieutenants at the time. We took one of our paychecks for 5 years straight and put it into savings. And that's how I got to the Harvard Business School, because my wife basically took her paycheck, saved it, and put me through school. Again, my hero is my wife. And I joined this firm called McKinsey & Company and came to Pittsburgh in 1988. And that's, as Christian said, when I started this healthcare business. I led a team. Almost everything I've done in my life has been through a team. I led a team of folks that built a spectacular business. We did work in 35 different countries, learned an awful lot about different healthcare systems, what worked, what didn't. And it was a little over a year ago that I left that firm to become a candidate for governor in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Now, along the way, we had 5 daughters, as I mentioned. Wonderful, wonderful young ladies, ages 30 down to 14. So we have a 16-year spread, and they're all doing exceptionally well. As Christian said, my second daughter, Hope, followed mom and dad to West Point. We couldn't be prouder of her. She just got back from South Korea a couple of months ago after 16 months, and she's out in Oklahoma. But they're all spectacular young ladies. And I tell you that story because I don't want you to be impressed with my background. I want you to know that I know that I'm the most blessed person in this room, blessed by God and blessed by this country. And that's why I'm standing here. That is precisely why I'm standing here. And by the way, I'm doing this on a volunteer basis. I'm running for governor, and I'm going to be governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania on a volunteer basis. No salary, no pension. That's my commitment. So that's a little bit about me. Why don't we come to topic number 2, which is about ideology. I'm sure Governor Wolf is a nice man. I've said that. I'm not criticizing him as a person. I'm sure he's a nice man. He subscribes to a totally different ideology than I believe everyone in this room does. He's a liberal, progressive socialist. Okay? He's instilling a culture of learned helplessness. He is evaluating himself. This is true. He's sending out fundraising notices based on how many more Pennsylvanians he's made dependent on the government. He expanded Medicaid, 800,000 folks, a lot of them healthy young adults. That is what's going to hurt more than anything else our ability to serve those who are most vulnerable. When you start extending those benefits to those who don't need it, we will not be able to take care of those who are most vulnerable. That's why I think we're the compassionate ones. We want to take care of the ones who are vulnerable. We're not going to be able to do it. He eliminated the asset test for food stamps. I'm unemployed. I've been unemployed for a year. I could apply for food stamps in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Okay? Eliminated the asset test. You could have $50 million in the bank and apply for food stamps. This is a guy who is, again, instilling this culture of learned helplessness. He is locking our fellow Pennsylvanians into poverty. I've spoken to scores of them who tell me the following story. Paul, I'm making 12 or 13 bucks an hour. I'm working very hard. My boss comes to me and says, you're working so hard, I want to give you a promotion. How about $18 an hour? And the answer is, I cannot take it. Because if I take it, I lose my Medicaid benefits, I lose my food stamps, I lose my child support, I lose my housing support. And this is true. There's an analysis done by the Commonwealth Foundation here in Pennsylvania that says if you're a single mother of 2, making $30,000 a year, you have to leap in a single bound to $70,000 to break even. So this guy is, again, reinforcing this sense of learned helplessness. He is locking our fellow citizens into poverty. I believe the complete opposite. What is the role of government in America? It's to create the conditions where everyone can be economically mobile. It is instilling a culture of earned success rather than learned helplessness. Now, how do we do that? There's 3 or 4 things we need to do that. I come back to strong family values at the heart of it. Okay? Every research effort that's ever been done on success of children links it to the family and strong family values. 2, we have to fix our K-12 education. We've heard a lot about the disaster known as Common Core. Let me tell you what my 2 standards are. I only have 2 standards for our education system. Is that graduate prepared for meaningful work in a globally competitive economy, and are they prepared to be good citizens? Okay? We're failing in large percentages on both of those criteria. And we're paying $300,000, $350,000 for each of those graduates. And we're not delivering on that. So again, strong family values, education, bring dignity back to work. Bring dignity back to work. All work is a blessing. I started as a dishwasher, making $1.75 an hour. I learned a lot about leadership. I learned a lot about teamwork. I learned a lot about customer service. All work is a blessing.
Yes.
And in particular in Pennsylvania, we have lost our skilled labor base. We are tens of thousands of jobs short. There's no reason why we shouldn't be encouraging our children to pursue careers as machine tool operators, as plumbers, as electricians, as carpenters. These jobs require extraordinary skills. And we should not continue to put people down who don't go to college. We have to bring dignity back to that. And then lastly, we need to get the government off of people's backs from a regulatory and a tax perspective. We do those four things, and we will have reestablished the conditions where every Pennsylvanian can be economically mobile again. So that's a little bit about, as I said, ideology, and again, very, very different from what the liberal, progressive socialists are talking about. Now, another point on ideology is, what is the role of our government in Harrisburg today? And this is why Christian and I, we've had many, many discussions about this. And the days of one-size-fits-all mandates are behind us from Harrisburg. Okay? I think the way to solve our most pressing issues is to work through our local communities, our local community leaders, our local community organizations. Okay? Take any one of our biggest social issues: drug overdose epidemic, education, poverty, healthcare. They're all very specific to local communities. The answer in Reading, Pennsylvania is very different than the answer in Pittsburgh, Erie, or Philadelphia. Yet we continue to propagate one-size-fits-all mandates from Harrisburg. It's time we re-engage the people. This is what Thomas Jefferson said. In a democracy or a constitutional republic, we come together voluntarily in our local communities to address our most pressing issues. Where the heck is that gone? Where the heck is that gone? So it's in Harrisburg, when I get there, my role is going to be to ensure that we stimulate innovation, creativity, adaptation in our local communities, and give our local communities the resources they need to solve those problems. That's not what Tom Wolfe believes. He believes that a PhD in Harrisburg, on top of a centralized bureaucracy, knows more than you do. That's simply not true. So that's a little bit, as I said, about ideology. Any questions on that before I continue? Just kind of want to cover a couple more topics. Okay, so, yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I've noticed from people I've talked with since who teach social science, social science is the one vulnerable thing in education, in my view. You can't cheat on math. You can't put on a liberal say, well, I think 2 and 2 is 6. But in social science, you can malign it. Today, there's I think all these demonstrations, I guess I'm going to ask you what you think you would do with this. All these demonstrations today, opposing this, opposing that, by the younger generation.
Yeah.
And from people I've talked with, they don't teach these basic Judaic Christian values that were the mainstay of our founding fathers in creating our Constitution. What would you do as governor to try to enforce a renewal of those kinds of things?
Great. So that's a perfect segue into where I was heading anyway, which was faith and values in our society. So why don't I try to answer that? How's that sound? And then make sure I'm answering your question. I think the starting point is faith and values are obviously for spiritual well-being. Okay? That's the way I think about them. A lot of people don't think about it that way. And let's just assume there's some that don't. Then I would ask them to think about faith and values a slightly different way, which is the following. There's never been, in my 30 years in business, a high-performing organization that didn't have a strong culture based on a common subscription to shared values. Okay, a common subscription to shared values. So I believe our constitutional republic absolutely requires, right, the Judeo-Christian values that you're talking about, because when we lose them, and we don't, as a society, subscribe to them, guess who steps in and imposes them? The government. And every time the government does it, as a substitute for individual responsibility, as a substitute for honesty, as a substitute for good citizenship, every time the government does it, it revokes some of our rights. So you don't have to be a person of seeking spiritual well-being, in my mind, to believe in and reinforce that Judeo-Christian values are essential to our constitutional republic, because the alternative is a government that overreaches into our lives. Okay? So that's the beginning of how I would deal with this. Okay? This isn't about separation of church and state. This is about the essence of what this country is about. And if we're going to restore the things that we think are most valuable, we're going to need to reinstill these values. Okay? Where did we get them as children? Family, church, sometimes in school, if you were drafted in the military. All four of those have broken down. We have kids at age 18 that have come from broken families, have never been to church. Think about that. They don't teach it in school. So we need to develop the mechanisms to reinstill those values through our community to our children if we're going to sustain our democracy. Okay? So people, you know, as Christian said, I'm conservative, I'm pro-life, I'm completely against the bathroom bill, not just because of my spiritual, not just because of my spiritual well-being and beliefs, but because I think we need to come back to subscribing to a set of Judeo-Christian values if we're going to sustain what this country is about. Amen. Right? Okay. Now, let me just cover one more topic, and then we'll take questions. How's that sound? Is that okay? Leadership. This is my last of 4 topics. I think this election is ultimately about leadership. And again, I think Governor Wolf is a nice man, but I can tell you he is not leading, okay? He is not leading. And 13 million Pennsylvanians deserve someone who's going to lead. So I want to talk to you about Paul Mango's leadership model. When I talk about leadership, what am I talking about? Well, the metaphor I use is leadership is not about being on top. It's about being out in front. I think any of our veterans in the group understands exactly what I'm talking about. Leadership is not about a hierarchical position telling people what to do. It's someone who can look over the horizon, anticipate the dangers and the opportunities that face the people in their charge, and ensure those folks are absolutely prepared to either avoid those dangers or take advantage of those opportunities. Okay? I think that's very important. The first step in being out in front is establishing a positive, compelling vision for what, in this case, the Commonwealth can be. The second thing you do is show a pathway how to get there, to give people confidence. And the third thing a leader does is help people get there. It's not about the leader, it's about who he's leading. Okay? So leadership is not about being on top. Think about that in your mind. It's about being out in front. Second, leadership's about inspiration, not intimidation. There's a lot of leaders, including some of my opponents in this race, who believe leadership is about intimidating others. It's about inspiring others. And I spent 15 months talking to Pennsylvanians, 75,000 miles on my car. They talked about hundreds of different topics. But if I distill it down to a single thing, they want to be inspired. Again, it's job one of any leader, and Tom Wolf is found in that. Absolutely found. So, this is what I learned at West Point. This is what I learned in the 82nd Airborne Division. This is what I learned in leading a team that built a $500 million global healthcare business. It's about being out in front, not on top. It's about inspiring, not intimidating. And it's about committing yourself to the success of others, not yourself. That's the leadership model I bring to this campaign and hopefully to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So those are the 4 topics I wanted to cover. I wanted you to know me better than you did 20 minutes ago. I'm going to pause and open it up for some more questions then. I'll let him be the bad guy and choose who gets to ask a question.
Hi. With no previous political experience, you have no political group to draw on, no political capital, so to speak. Earlier tonight, I heard 2 candidates for lieutenant governor who sounded more like they were both running for governor with all the things they're going to do. One of them said they don't work for the governor, they work with the governor. How are you going to rein all of these people in and accomplish anything? Obviously, you can't do it without their support.
Yeah. Great, thank you for your question. And I always, when people say, oh, you haven't been involved in politics, I haven't been involved in elected office. I always refer to Woodrow Wilson's, my favorite quotation, which is, I left Princeton, he was the president of Princeton for 2 years before he was president of the United States. He said, I left Princeton and entered government service to get away from the politics. And he was right, if anyone knows what happens on a university campus. But I've been involved in a lot of political situations, and I don't think there's anything more vicious than the corner office of a Fortune 100 company, because the stakes are so high there. There's a lot of politics. But let me tell you what I've learned, because what I did in my business career, what we really did was take large multi-billion-dollar organizations which had lost their way. They fell out of touch with their customers. They knew what to do sometimes, but when you have 40, 50, 100,000 employees, you're sometimes culturally restricted. People are committed to the status quo. They're not committed to change. Our role is to bring positive change to those organizations. So I really spent 25 years designing and leading change programs. And let me tell you what was very successful. And I come back to a little bit of what I said. Every change journey begins with a vision. We used to have chief executive officers call us in and say, we need to change. We're hurting. We're losing all this money. We're losing customers. We need to change. I had a very simple question. Where do you want to be 5 years from now? Where do you want to be 10 years from now? We can't design a change program unless you define what the end state is. Tom Wolfe hasn't done that. Once you can get people behind, again, a compelling positive view, which we have all the opportunity in Pennsylvania and the world to deliver on that, you get them behind a positive vision of the future, you start to get their attention. You show them how to get there step by step. They can't always connect the dots between where we are today and where we want to be 10 years from now. You show them how we can get there, they get more excited. And then the most important thing to change, whenever anyone faces change, the number one question on their mind is, what does that mean for me? Oh my gosh, I have a skill set that's not going to be relevant any longer. I'm not going to be relevant in this new world. You need to give them the confidence that you're going to give them the training and the support to get there. Okay? Those are 3 things, but there's more to it. You need to listen. You need to listen. As Christian said, I've spent 15 months listening to Pennsylvanians. You don't have to compromise your conservative principles, but you do have to listen and understand where other folks are coming from. And here's what I've learned. People who thought they didn't agree with each other, we can go through a quick 1-hour exercise. Break out into rooms, 100 people. Write down the 5 things that are most important to you, and let's come back in. You'd be surprised how much overlap there is between those 5. Now, there might be one in each of those 5 that no one agrees on. Throw it out. Let's focus on the 4 that we all agree on. So there's ways to bring people together. Listen, vision, journey, understanding, support, that lead to this type of change. But I'll add one last thing, and that's the following. I don't think a frontal assault on the legislature is going to be successful. I don't think ramming it down their throats is going to be successful. I think the most effective way to get them to change their behavior is to bring a level of awareness and understanding of what's happening in Harrisburg to you. And I'm going to ask you to put the pressure on your legislators. Because they understand, listen, their role is to be responsive to their constituents. Okay? So if they're going to vote one way, they're not stupid. They're not irrational. they're voting in a way where they believe they're responding to their constituents. I think if we continue to build awareness amongst their constituents as to how wrong that vote may be, then we have a chance of doing it. So that's what I would hope to do. It's what I've done for 25 years, and you know, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but that's made me smarter today. So I feel good about that. Shorter answers.
I just want to know your thought with the Second Amendment, because, you know, how they're messing with our gun rights and everything. What's your
It's
view
very
on it?
simple. I agree with Sam. The right to bear arms in Pennsylvania in defense of yourself or in defense of the state shall not be questioned. So I didn't even look at my notes, Sam. Because I remember I read Article 1, Section 21 of our Constitution.
Amen. We'll have the Second Amendment rally tomorrow in Harrisburg.
Yes.
10 to 2.
Are you going to say be there or be square? Thank you.
Over here, Paul. Right here. We know each other, Ron Holtz, Pennsylvania Liberty Alliance.
Yes, Ron.
Just so you know, my job, I do not work for a campaign. My job as president of my organization is to get past the rhetoric and drill right down to the facts. And so by doing so, what I have to do is I have to look into what candidates are saying versus what I see in their rhetoric. And I'll give you a couple examples. You claim to be a Trump supporter and anti-Common Core. However, when I look at your donations, I see almost $36,000 going to Jeb Bush and his PAC. He is one of the biggest Common Core supporters of the politicians that we have. His PAC then turned around and donated to Lindsey Graham and John McCain. Another example, we talk about small government overspending, but yet a 2009 article in The Economist shows you supporting universal health care because it would save hospitals money, and at the same time establishing another benefit package for certain people to get taxpayer subsidized health insurance. So I say that not necessarily to beat up on you, but to wrap it right into my issue, 76. You were sort of for it, then against it, and you were worried about rich people leaving the state if we pass it, and then you wanted to do it by county level, which is impossible. So how are we supposed to, what are we going to get? If actions speak louder than words, or what you're saying now when we speak louder, if you're elected governor, than the past actions that I just mentioned. And where do you stand specifically today on 76?
Let me address all three of them. So the Economist article that you referred to, can I describe what it is? Have you read it?
I have it.
Okay, good. So it was an article written by the Economist that said, why is it that the American Hospital Association is willing to take a $155 billion cut in their Medicare reimbursements and then support Obamacare? That seems irrational. I was one of the leading authorities on hospital economics in the country. They called me. They asked me, why would the American Hospital Association ever do that? I said, because when all these uninsured people become insured, their emergency rooms aren't going to be filled with people who aren't paying anymore. Their emergency rooms are going to be filled with people who are paying. So it's a good deal for the hospitals. It's a statement on hospital economics. It had nothing to do with advocacy for Obamacare, and you know that. I have never advocated for Obamacare. Read it, please. Read it to the group. Read it from the first paragraph, though.
It says, Paul Mango of McKinsey.
Can you read it from the start?
Says the problem will be greatly reduced under a system of universal health insurance, which included subsidies for the indigent, as proposed health reforms envisage. Universal health care.
No. It absolutely would help. They were asking me a very simple question. Will this improve hospital economics? The unsanitized answer is yes. It has nothing to do with my position on Obamacare. You could ask 1,000 people in the healthcare industry. You could ask 1,000 people in the cleaning company, and I bet you $1,000 and not one of them would say I ever advocated for Obamacare. I spent 7 years fighting against Obamacare. That's what I did. Show everyone the article. They can read it themselves. I'm just telling you. Jeb Bush, let's go to topic number 2. Jeb Bush was a board member of one of my clients for 6 years. I got to know him well. He called me up before he ran for president and said, Paul, you're a leading expert in healthcare in this country. Will you help me develop a healthcare policy? Of course. Sure. Donald Trump wasn't even in the race yet. What was I going to say? I did. When Jeb Bush got out of the race, I maxed my donation to Donald Trump. I voted for him in the primary. I voted for him in the general election. I support him 100%. But I'm not going to be disloyal to someone. If Donald Trump called me today and said, Paul, I want you to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services, I would drop this race for governor and I'd go be the Secretary of Health and Human Services. That's what I would do. How much money did you give Donald Trump?
None.
I gave him $2,700. I maxed out in the general election. I'm sorry. Third question. SB 76. I'll go back to what Christian said. I was for it and I had some doubts. That's what I said when we were at Sam's house. I gave you 3 objections that I had to it that day. Sam, do you remember that? I was very honest about it. Very honest about it. Okay. Then I did some more homework. I called Dave Argo. I talked to him for an hour. I talked to some of the citizens who put it together, and I said, how are we going to ensure that the money that goes to Harrisburg gets back to our local school districts? How are we going to deal with school strikes with a bigger centralized system? And I got answers that I was satisfied with, and I'm not going to be Nancy Pelosi and agree to sign something that I don't understand. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to explore every aspect of that. I read all 138 pages of SB 76. I had some questions about it. If you want me to blindly follow something that might get our citizens in trouble down the road, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to understand it. Once I understand it, I'm telling you now, I will support it. I will fight for it. I will sign it. End of conversation. I hope I answered your questions. Now you got me fired up. Qualified paratrooper, I'm telling you.
Hello, my name is John Ray Hoffman. I live in Perry Township. I'm a United States Army veteran.
Thank you for your service.
You touched on this a little bit. Back in 2016, Governor Hull vetoed a bill to hire more investigators to combat welfare fraud. And in October 2017, he vetoed House Bill 59 to require work for Medicaid. What is your opinion on this? And when you become governor, what are you planning to do?
Single word, disgraceful. You reinforce what I said about Tom Wolf. Right? His objective is to increase dependence on the government. Okay? My objective is to make sure we have as many Pennsylvanians as possible generating family-sustaining incomes completely independent of the government. It's disgraceful. I don't know how else to answer it. This is why we need change in Pennsylvania.
Hi, Jane Taylor, Toll Citizens for Liberty. When you become our governor, first of all, we have to drain this political cesspool and get people like you, God-fearing Christians. Amen. Thank you for running. Senator Wagner has done nothing with the CHIP program about youth hormone replacement therapy. What can you do, and do you think our tax dollars could be used better to rid this and use it for the opioid crisis that we're facing?
So first of all, the senator, it's his own words, senator's own words, stood up in the Senate committee a couple weeks ago and said, I've been here 4 years and I haven't gotten anything done yet. I could not agree more with the senator on that statement. Okay? He said he went to Harrisburg to bring change, and then he stood up a couple weeks ago and said, I've been here 4 years, I haven't gotten anything done. So let's start with that. But there's a larger issue here, and it's an issue of religious conscience and freedom. Okay? And it's the same with this bathroom bill. The Medicaid thing is the same, and it's the same with funding Planned Parenthood. We should never take taxpayers' dollars that violate one's religious conscience and put them to causes that exemplify that violation. So it is a larger issue, and people have criticized me for being against SB 1307, the bathroom bill. Paul's discriminating against LGBT folks. No, that's not what the issue is. I have 5 daughters. There's 3 issues. The issue is the privacy and security of our children, that's 2, and the religious freedom of all Pennsylvanians. They're going to try to pin us on being discriminatory. That's not what this is about. We need to fight back and make sure they understand what it really is about. And the senator said I do not understand the objections of people of faith have to this bill. I can't believe he said that. I understand it. That's what we have to fight for. He's never going to fight for your rights, your religious rights, and your right to religious conscience. I will. Everybody got another 5 minutes? Okay. Yes, sir.
Peter, military man, thank you for your service.
Thank
you. I'd like to ask you, when you win, are you going to drive a Jeep to work just like President Wolf does?
No, I'm not. I'm going to be completely honest with you here. My team won't want me to. He bought that Jeep 3 months before he started running for office. Okay? He bought that Jeep 3 months before he started running for office. I drive, I'm being complete, I drive a 2011 Porsche Cayenne. My team said, Paul, get rid of that car, you're never going to be elected by... I said, listen, I lived in Germany for 3 years, I like fast cars. That's all there is to it. I'm not going to fake. I'm not going to try to fool the people of Pennsylvania. I'm going to drive my Porsche around. It's right out there in the parking lot. I love it. I'm going to put 75,000 miles on it in the last 15 months. I need to be comfortable. By the way, I don't have a driver either. I drive myself. So I'm just telling you, he's a fake, he's a phony. What I'm going to give you, what you see is what you get. That's the car I'm driving around. You'll never see me in a Jeep. I did that 35 years ago when I was a lieutenant in the Army. We're very uncomfortable.
My question goes back to education. Yeah. Many high schools discourage students from going into vocational education. Yeah. What can we actually do? What kind of program can we set up to get this vocational going?
Yeah, and I've talked to a lot of parents and kids who say when the trades, a lot of schools won't let them in. A lot of schools won't let them in. Why is that? Well, a lot of these schools believe they're being evaluated on how many kids they get to college. Okay? So we need to do 2 or 3 things that I think are very important. And I'll start with leadership. How many times has Tom Wolf been at the graduation of a VOTEC school? I don't know, I'm guessing 0. Okay? Leaders celebrate the things they want more of. Okay? So we need to spend time doing that. You need to be present doing that. I think we need a huge awareness building program amongst parents and kids. And tell the parents, listen, these kids can earn, I mean, I've done my homework. You have 4 or 5 years of apprenticeship, getting paid the whole time, being trained as an apprentice for free. You don't have to pay anything. You come out of there with a $75,000 starting wage. If you're a machine tool operator in Pennsylvania today, you can make $110,000 before overtime. That's how short we are of those critical skills. I think we need to build awareness, education, bring dignity back to it, celebrate. I'm just not a mandate guy. I'm not a guy who says, let's impose this mandate. I've told you that several times. I'm a person who believes you influence by educating, building awareness, celebrating. That's the way you get people to really come on board with that type of thing. I am a huge believer in we're tens of thousands of jobs short. We don't have to bring any more companies to Pennsylvania to get another 100, 150,000 people working. We have to give them the skills to be competitive in the 21st century. Thank you for the question.
More than half the states in this union give the citizens of those states the right to put a binding referendum on the ballot. Pennsylvania does not. If it did, I predict that we would have to worry about the size of the legislature, state being in the liquor business, or schools being funded by taxes on my home.
Yeah.
When you become governor, will you support a constitutional amendment that gives us citizens the right to put a binding question on the ballot?
Absolutely. And by the way, you're raising just real quickly, we do have the opportunity to have a constitutional convention. Okay, we haven't had one in 50 years. And I'm sure, sir, that's not the only issue that we'd like to re-examine a bit, but I'm absolutely supportive of it. It's so consistent with my belief that we need to be led and governed by the people again, and I think that promotes that very much. So thank you for that point.
Paul, I have a campaign finance report here that says you took $25,000 from Jennifer Pritzker, am I reading that correctly? Retired colonel in the U.S. Army National Guard in the state of Illinois at a campaign event in Chicago. You attacked Scott Wagner on the fact of a bathroom bill, but the money you took from this Jennifer Pritzker, she's a transgender.
Yeah, so let's come back. First of all,
So what?
thank you from a team member of Senator Wagner, but let me tell you this. Colonel Pritzker, former member of the 82nd Airborne Division, great veteran, sent me $25,000. I'm not for the bathroom bill.
Yeah.
I'm not for the bathroom bill. This is one veteran, one fellow 82nd Airborne Division person to another, sending me a check.
That's right.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong?
Like I said, this is not about discrimination. It's about privacy and security of our children, and about religious freedom. If you want to send me $25,000, that's fine.
Tim Gill.
What's that?
Tim Gill donating to Scott Wagner.
I do. He's a co-sponsor of it. He refused to vote for an amendment that Senator Scavello said would grant religious exceptions and would not force our schools to integrate bathrooms based on gender identity. That's why I'm criticizing him. That's why I'm criticizing him. I'm against the bathroom bill. Colonel Pritzker was a former member of the 82nd Airborne Division and veteran. Sent me money.
Amen.
What's wrong with that? Does anyone else have an objection to that? And you're trying to conflate it with my belief on the bathroom bill, and it's completely wrong. Completely wrong.
He's not an activist.
And it's not an issue of discrimination. And Colonel Pritzker understands that.
Right.
That's right.
Quick question. How do you stand on the right to work in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, great question. Here's, it's not a priority for me. And I know that's a little bit, just give me a second to describe why for a minute, okay? Because I've done some homework on this. First of all, you're talking about the working class that Donald Trump handed to us. The working class. I believe that PA 18 was lost on this basis. PA 18 on Tuesday was lost on this basis. But let me go deeper into this. We are tens of thousands of jobs short of skilled labor. We have many fine trade unions who are apprenticing the next generation of our workers. I think that's very important, okay, number one. Two, if any of you knows these folks, they are pro-life, they're pro-family, they are pro-Second Amendment, they are pro-veteran, they are pro-work. We're not talking about folks who get paid when they don't work. The reason they've supported me, a lot of the working class have supported me because they want a pro-growth governor. They want a pro-growth governor. And then third, I believe, as we were just talking about a little while ago, about 65% of these folks who are in these unions, working 40, 50 hours a week, family sustaining incomes. When they get home, guess what they do? What do you think? Watch what? No, they don't watch television, they don't go to bed. There are volunteer firefighters. They are our Little League coaches. They are our Boy Scout troop leaders. They are mentoring the next generation of our children. So I believe it's important that they have family-sustaining incomes on 40 or 50 hours a week so they can put time into our local communities and rebuild them. There are 5 things I'm going to do to grow this economy. One is ensure that we have a competitive tax rate. 2, ensure that we roll back regulations. 3, ensure that we have a first-class, world-class infrastructure. 4, reconstitute our skilled labor base. And 5th, me personally, be the chief marketing officer of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Our governor has not left Pennsylvania once, according to his own calendar, in 3.5 years for promoting Pennsylvania business. I guarantee you, if I do those 5 things, the only problem we're going to have is a tremendous shortage of labor making family-sustaining incomes. That'll be a high-class problem to have. We won't have to worry about Medicaid payments. We won't have to worry about unemployment. We won't have to worry about food stamps. I'm going to focus on those 5 things. That's what I'm going to do. So, slightly different perspective, but I just want to be honest with you. Okay.
Paul?
Yes, ma'am. Where are you?
Over here.
Okay.
Okay. When you're elected,
Yes.
what is the first thing you're going to do to defend the unalienable right
to life of the unborn. And since you mentioned those 5, I didn't see pro-life in there, so I'm kind of concerned. So what are you going to
Well,
do?
those 5 were just for the economy.
Okay, let's start on pro-life.
Yeah, there's 3 things that I think we can get done almost immediately. When I say almost immediately, within the first couple of months in my first budget. One is we're going to defund Planned Parenthood. And let me tell you why. And I'm not just saying that, and I know what Congress is going to do. He's going to attack me as a guy who spent his whole career in healthcare and he doesn't care about women's healthcare. BS. And I'll tell you why. We have 320 federally qualified health clinics in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We have 28 Planned Parenthood clinics. Those federally qualified health clinics, which do not perform abortions, have a menu of services for our women that far exceeds what the Planned Parenthood folks have. So that's going to be a nonsense argument on his part. We're ready to fight that. 2, we have to sign SB 3. SB 3.
Yes. Yeah.
There may be some people in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that don't believe life begins at conception as we do, but you have to believe that life begins at viability. There are babies living at 21 weeks, 6 days. I did work in children's hospitals for a good part of my career. Every doctor, every nurse, every administrator is doing everything they can to save that life. You know what's great about the U.S. healthcare system? We talk about our costs. It's the only system in the world that will intervene heroically to save anyone's life. Okay? How can it possibly be that 2 doors down, we are discarding that same life? So SB 3 is very important. And third, I want to put resources into expanding women's choices. How about adoption? How about counseling? How about support for that baby? How about support for that infant? Rather than that poor woman thinking it's either something I don't want to do, I'm not prepared to raise a child, or abortion. That shouldn't be the only 2 choices that they have. So those are the 3 things we can do very quickly to advance life in Pennsylvania in the first couple of months.
And since people might not know what SB 3 is,
Sorry.
it is the Dismemberment Bill. That word, dismemberment, should bring horrors to your mind.
It does.
Cutting off arms, crushing heads, decapitating legs. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's got to be something that everybody can pull for.
Amen.
That's something we don't want to be as a society.
I want to thank you, Rod. I want to thank Sam. I want to thank you all for listening. As I said, I had a singular objective, for you to get to know me a little bit better. I know we don't agree 100% on everything, but I wanted you to get my honest feeling on how I would govern, where I came from, what some of my values are, what my ideology is, and what my leadership model is. So hopefully, at least we achieved that objective. I thank you for the sincere, good faith questions. Maybe a couple of them weren't. Those guys have left. They've left the building. So I really appreciate everything. Thank you very much.
Okay, folks, we ran a little over, but there's a lot of good questions.
I'd like to get a picture with Paul. Come on over. I'd love to do one. If you want to stand here, I'll come in.
Okay.
our students. Please bless us all on the way home and keep us safe. Amen.